I was just talking to my friend, and they're in the middle of a really, really hard place, a hard time financially. They need God to come through, and they need a major miracle. And in our conversation, I started to recall the goodness of God in my life and how God has come through for me financially in other ways. Um, More times than I can count. But in this particular case, I recalled how I hadn't said a word to anybody, and that a woman that I really did not have a personal relationship with, I knew her from church, but I did not, we weren't friends. Um, she blessed me with $2,500. And I had to have that money in that season. And that a lot of times we can get really, really discouraged with our lives. We can look up and see that things are not where we want them to be. They're not the way that we want them to be. If I'm being honest, I really could, in this situation, think of my stroke and think of what that's cost me. Physically, financially, emotionally, gosh, every alley you can think of. But I've also seen God's incredible kindness through all of this. Even the fact that I have my very life is a miracle. And for a while was something that was not a guarantee. You could really, 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 really be going through something. And maybe it's just too hard for you to imagine life being a different way for you right now. And I get that. I really do understand that. Gosh, I understand that. However, I want you to consider who God is and what He's capable of. And don't necessarily look at what's going on around you, because that could be discouraging. At one point when I first had my stroke and I was in a nursing home, I was kind of oblivious to the fact that I had been in a coma and that all of these things had happened to me and that I was basically as good as dead. I just knew that I'd lost my physical self. I had lost my house. I'd lost my child. All of the things that were important to me took a hit. The place in my brain where my stroke was affected me, myself, the part of me that I knew. The place where the stroke happened, or where the tumor was. The stroke was on the right and left of my brain, but the place where I'd had surgery, where there was a huge grapefruit-sized cyst, was in the cerebellum, which is the back of the brain, the base of the brain. That is where your motor skills are. That's where language skills are. That's where your balance, just you standing normally, is. That's where, gosh, I can't even, your memory. There's so many things that are affected that honestly I had taken for granted. I had just assumed this was me at that point. They were part of my nature, and then they weren't. It was really, 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 really hard. It was a hard place. And to be perfectly honest, I am light years from where I was. Light years, gosh. But I'm still in a really, really hard place. Things are not as they were. They're on their way back, thank you God. But they're not there yet. They're not there today. There is a lot that I could fuss about. A lot. Oh gosh. There's so much. But as I began to remember God's goodness to me and how God came through for me just at one time, and that was one time of many times, like many, many times, I began to get encouraged as I was encouraging my friend. And I realized once more that there really is nothing that is too hard for God and nothing that He can't do. And even if God does not move in the way that I want Him to, ultimately, His actions are towards my good. He's going to work all of everything, all the mess, all that I can't see, all the good, all that I can see, all of it towards a desired end, towards my future, towards my good. And that's what we stand on. So I want to encourage you today. Perhaps you're in the middle of some trash. I mean, just a really, really, really hard place. Maybe it's very easy for you to look back and remember who God has been and what He's done for you. Or maybe it's really hard to see where God has come through for you and where things have worked out for you. Either way, I want to encourage you to trust God, because nothing that you have gone through or are currently going through will be wasted. I just watched a movie, and in it there was this woman who, when we're first introduced to her, she is stark raving mad. She is a lunatic and is being taken into an insane asylum. I mean, and she is thrashing and screaming and carrying on, having at it, delusions of grandeur. I mean, just going through. And for a lot of the movie, she's there. But by the end of it, by going through the process, she gets her healing and becomes one of the leading psychoanalysts in the world and working with Dr. Freud. And it was a true story. If she or if anybody had simply taken her beginning and taken that to write her off and be like, well, that's who she is, that's what she's going to be, then none of what was coming would have come. But because she went through what she went through, when she became a doctor and when she began to treat people and when she had this incredible relationship with Dr. Freud, her experience and her life was so much richer, and the help that she was able to give her patients was so much richer and so much more deep because of where she had been. Listen, nothing will be wasted. Nothing. And I say that while I'm going through some trash. I mean, I'm going through some trash. But I know that nothing will be wasted. I'm not just saying it to hype myself up or to hype you up. This is what I know. Nothing will be wasted. And that's what I'm standing on today. And I want you to stand on it. And stand on it every time you need to.